So we're COMP308, and this is week 2, lesson 2, and it's like part 3. If you did like part 1 and 2. By the way, your parts 1 and 2, they should be up online already. If you haven't seen them already, they're I've shared them with you on YouTube with you. So this is your part 3. In parts 1 and 2, we talked about a couple things. In the part 1, we did more GitHub stuff because I wanted you guys to get into the whole GitHub thing, which I thought was important. And in the second part, part 2, we kind of talked about assignment 1, which was, some of you were like, this is a big assignment. This is crazy big, right? Like you guys were saying, right? I'm okay with it. I'm okay with you. I'd rather have that feedback up front. And when we do assignments together, I want you to tell me if you think it's nuts what I'm asking for. It's okay to give me feedback because I can sit there and go, okay, maybe you need an extension, maybe not. What I'm going to do with this one, because this is your first one, it's really for me to gauge your level of your ability with web design, right? And there's going to be sub pieces to it. The first piece is going to be this external document. So part of this assignment is actually can be broken up into a couple of assignments. One of them is how do I do an external document, almost like this style guide, which is really what I'm asking you to do, right? And if you don't, who's ever heard of a style guide? Some of you may not have because you've heard of one. So style guide is something when we make websites, and if you want to be a web designer one day, we create websites for our clients. We create a style guide that goes along with it, right? Because we don't just create a website and say, see ya. You know, we want to make it so that way if we ever come back to them again 6 months from now to do a revision, because most of our websites we do are revisions. They're not greenfield kind of new projects that we're going to create from scratch. Chances are, right? Most people nowadays in business have a website. There are a few people, the new people that don't have it. Some people who just want their business card up online, that kind of thing, right? And so in those cases, they don't need a style guide, right? You're creating one from the beginning. They don't have anything to revise. They're not going to pass you a style guide, is what I meant. Where in most cases, if you're doing a revision work on a website, or updating a website that exists, it's nice to have a style guide from the previous web designer, developer, to give to you so you can see what the colors are, what their style is in terms of what the original design was, what the wireframes look like, all that kind of stuff. That's the right thing to do. I'll be honest with you, most times when I do a web design of any kind, I never get a style guide. Almost never. In the larger ones, though, when you're not working alone, when you're working on a large web application, you need one, right? So this is why I'm getting you to make one, because again, I want to increase or improve your employability. So you should know what a style guide is. It also will help you do some better writing, because one of the things I'm going to look for in your external document is going to be how do you write? How are you relating to me? So if you've never done writing, or if you're someone that's not great at English, this is an opportunity for you to do some writing to this external document, so I can see how so you can improve your English. So I think it's part of it, right? There's nothing worse than getting a document from a person who's doing work for me, and they've misspelled half the words. That's bad. Doesn't look good, right? It may seem like something silly or something that's not important, but actually it's quite important when you get something. It looks less professional, right? Especially when the words are correct, but the grammar is wrong, right? Like they've put it through Google Translate or something like that. That's really bad. So it's a good chance for you guys to practice your English. So again, I gave you a couple of links, and I'm not sure if you've seen them, but I put them all up on eCentennial. Have you guys taken a look at that? So one of them is a link to the YouTube videos that I host. The other one is a big grouping of links that are all to do with how do I do my web design? How do I do stuff? I want to go over some of those links with you first before we get into Foundation really quickly, right? So one of them, like I said, is if I was going to go into on the website, I have, we kind of did some of these, can I use? I did, HTML5test.com, we did that already. A lot of them include something called Quirks tools. If you see, there's a couple places where I've included the Quirks tools. And again, it's just another set of tools for you to use as a designer, developer, right? If you want to build a sitemap, and one of the assignment bonus marks is, hey, can I build a sitemap? Well, you can do that by using Quirks tools, where you can move you can create a sitemap around like this, right? Or here's my project, here's my welcome. So maybe this is going to be my home page. I'm just using Quirk tools to do this, right? And then maybe this one is going to be I'm double clicking here. This one's going to be my my projects page, right? And this is what my nav bar is going to look like. And underneath my home page or whatever, there might be some other links. So you can create your sitemap by using SMaps that comes with quirktools.com. This is kind of a neat little tool. Quirks tools also allows you to do wireframing. So if you want to do wireframing for free, as an example, you can sign up for Quirks tools, and if you want to design your page, like for example, how big your page is, right now it shows 750 by 1300. You can specify, like for example, if my page was like 800 by 600, which is kind of a weird size nowadays, but let's just say I could just put it in here, and then I can try and fit my text and all this stuff around by creating what we like to call a wireframe, right? So I just click on the stuff that I want, and I can just move it around, right? So click on it and move it. There we go. Click on the text and then move it. Oops. I move it back. So some tools, like this is a free tool. So you might get some pieces that work really well and some pieces that don't work so well. But then again, this is completely free. So at the end of the day, you know what? You get a free online tool that you can use to create your wireframes. One of the requirements for your assignment, number one, is wireframes. And we'll be doing that over the course of the next several, or a couple classes anyway. Wireframes. Well, I'll try and hit a couple of the things that you need to build your website in class. So part of the time we're going to be spending over these next couple of weeks is, let's build this portfolio site together. Like, I'm not asking you to do it completely on your own. I'm going to be there with you to help you, right? So wireframes. Other piece parts of this one is, for the Quirks tools, is ScreenFly, which is, it kind of tests out what your screen would look like on different viewports. So let's say if I was to go with that whole Tim Hortons thing again, timhortons.com, right? And then if I wanted to look at it on a tablet, what would the tablet look like? Let's look at an iPad. So that's what it looks like on an iPad. How about on a mobile phone? Let's look at an iPhone 6, right? And it tells you what it looks like. Now, this may be deceiving because even though the Tim Hortons website works, it doesn't give you this mobile view of it, right? So, but it does adjust the size of the screen size, or the viewport, according to what we're looking at here, right? So here, this ScreenFly, and it's again part of Quirk tools, allows you to test your viewport across different viewport sizes, right? So one tool that kind of does a few things. That's kind of neat. And Retro, this is neat too. Retro, what it does is it checks out the size of your screen, right? So here's my screen, here's my viewport, here's my ratio, here's my user agent string, right? So I'm coming in with a browser that's a Mozilla-based browser, right? Google. Macintosh computer running OS X 10.10. It's my user agent string. Whenever I'm accessing a website, I have, depending on the device I'm using and the browser I'm using, I access the website. It's listening for my user agent string. And depending on the user agent string that's incoming, it can tell if it's a mobile device or if it's a desktop device, or what kind of device is accessing it, right? Also, my IP address is there. This is the IP address of the school that I'm coming out of. Okay, so this is a little tool that does a few little things. Okay. Again, we're trying to build up our toolbox when we do web design and stuff like that. It's here to help us. So that's why I've given you these links, because these are a bunch of common links that I use over and over again when I do my testing and when I build my websites. And as we move forward with emerging technologies, the same kind of tools, when we build our assignments, we're going to use them again and again but we're gonna use different technologies to do it. Okay, let's take a look at a couple other ones. Not JavaScript. Mind maps and sitemaps. There's a couple of ones that you can use. One of them is called Bubble.us, bubble.us, right? If I say start brainstorming, I get right into it. And a mind map is like a sitemap, because what I can do is I can create a, again, here's my home page, right? So I can start doing my sitemap. And this is for brainstorming as well. And maybe, you know, what I want to do is, with my home page, oops, I want to create a bubble, right, that's below it, and below my home page, I want to have maybe, I want to do it this way, projects. I'll pull it up for you guys to see it in a second. So here's my, you can actually pull this around, right? So here's my home page, my projects page. Under my projects page, I have my, I mean, this is my kind of my site navigation, if you will, right? Maybe my contacts page, right? And I have my my about me page, my bio, right? And so on, right? And then inside my projects page, I might have, you know, oops, I did the wrong one, but that's okay. You can delete these nice and easy, right? I meant to do this one, and of course it didn't do what I wanted to do. But it basically, what it allows you to do is you can actually drag and drop these things around, right? So they can appear any way you like, right here. So this is the my navigation, right? That's what I want to try and do. I want to kind of create my navigation from here. So here's my projects. My projects is, here's project 1, right? And you know what? Project 1 is going to have a GitHub link. And you know what? I also want to make project 2, right? And so on. Right? You get the idea. So you create your sitemap. You're mapping out your links, all the links to your site before you've ever done any scripting whatsoever, right? This is the advantage of doing something like this. And it also allows you to brainstorm a little bit, right? When you're doing your web design. Right? Sometimes what we want to do is we do this on a piece of paper, right? A client comes over and you write stuff up on a piece of paper, almost like creating a little sitemap. These are all my links, right? Sometimes we want to do this because we don't create new websites like we said, right? It's usually websites that have already been created, right? What we want to do is do this for us already because maybe there is no style guide we're being passed. So I want to map somebody else's existing website. So I sit there and I go and map it out, and so I understand the relationship between all the links because it's important, right? And especially if the client wants all of their functionality maintained. I want all this to stay, but I want you to add this section, right? So sometimes it's important to map it all out. And something like a Bubble.us or other mind mapping software, here's another one. And I put this, by the way, these are all links that you have already on your eCentennial, right? There's another thing called MindMeister, which does a very similar thing. And you can sign up and stuff like that for free. Let's see, I think I've already signed up for this one. Right? Just to demonstrate it. So here I am, I've got a web project, right? And what you can do is when you open the map, here's an example, a website, again, right? And the website is just, it allows you to create links to pages and content. And maybe you want to also have some links to navigation. Your mind map may not just be pages, but also might be linking to content. Or like, for example, what content do I need? I need images, I need user stories, I need audio, I need whatever I need. So you can do a brainstorming with mind map as opposed to just a site mapping thing. Right? And then, of course, there's tools that we have that's built in. Like, for example, there's some really cool mapping tools that you can download and you're installing your system. I'm going to show you some of these too, because let's face it, when we do some of this stuff, we do it locally. So MindNode Pro, and I'm trying to see if I can, is the same kind of idea, right? And it's something that's Mac capable. Here's my MindMap, and I can just add as many nodes as I want to this thing. And of course, I can, with this, I can move the node around anywhere I like. So again, when it comes to mind mapping, right, to brainstorming, you can add as many of these pieces as you want. Like for example, pages. Like I said before, what pages do I need on my site? What content do I want to put on my site? How about my resources? Who are the people that are going to help me build my site? And so on. You can kind of put all this together in one big mind map, or a brainstorming session to help you brainstorm to see what you're going to be creating. Okay, so a couple of really cool pieces of software. One of them, this one here, is something that's local, and it's something that you have to pay for on the Mac. There's a couple of them that I showed you that are freeware, or free to use with upgrade plans, right? Viewport testing is important. We did that with Quirks mode, right? With Quirks tools. But I like to use ResponseInator, and I kind of showed you guys this already. ResponseInator is a site where we can test out timhortons.com for functionality. And this now we will kind of get our page. Where it's a clickable page, and here's the hamburger. So we can see that what Tim Hortons would look like on a mobile phone, and again with different kinds of orientations. This is a portrait orientation. This is a landscape orientation. Different kinds of phones, iPhone 6, portrait and landscape, and then different kinds of devices, like for example, different tablets, what they look like. So ResponseInator is kind of good like that. It's a way of simulating or testing viewports and how your site will look on a viewport. And I recommend when you make your site for me, which is your assignment number 1, remember it's supposed to be responsive, right? So responsiveness, we can test this out here with ResponseInator. Again, I'm going to eventually upload another little piece of code that works on air, and I think I kind of showed it to you guys the first day. But let's take a look at it anyway, and I'll see if I have it here. I'm going to put this up on eCentennial, if I can actually see it. Mobilizer is what it's called. And again, what it is you can put in there whatever site you want. It's something local to, let's say, we'll look at Tim Hortons. Same idea, right? But you can choose a phone, a type of phone, a device. Let's say, for example, an old a Samsung Galaxy S4, right? Because that's what they have at the time when this thing came out. And what it does, it's great for prototyping because it checks out what the site will look like on a phone, and you can actually do a little click through to see the kind of the functionality, how it works. So there's your Samsung, and let's say I also want to see it on an old BlackBerry, right? This is what it would look like on the BlackBerry, right? And you can actually take screen captures of these things when you're doing client presentations. And there's software out there, not free ones like this, but other ones that you can actually take, and so you can create your prototyping with. And that's called Mobilizer. So I'll get you that one. I'll put it up on eCentennial when I have it for you. And there's different versions that I have that'll work for you for both PC, Mac, and Linux. Okay, so that's a kind of some viewport testing, and I've added a couple other ones there for you. I'm not going to go over them. For fonts and colors, I've asked you to talk about the colors, and sometimes when we define colors, a client will have a certain color swatch that he likes to use. Well, there's one of the best ones that I like for color matching and stuff like that is something called Adobe Color CC, and I've given you that that as well, where you can create color swatches. So let's say, for example, and there's different ones. I want to try and do some use complementary colors on my website as an example, and you know what? here's my, I want some greens or some purples and some greens, and they work really nicely together, right? As an example. And you can also do things like shades. So I want to use different shades of the same color, right, kind of thing. And you can take this and use, they actually give you the hex values and RGB values for your sites when you create, let's say, more of a reddish site or an orange site or a blue site, which is more popular these days, you know, with maybe some green, some grays and some blues. These colors all work nicely together. So they're pleasing to the eye as opposed to you doing it on your own, and then there's some clash going on. You look at the colors and like, oh God, this color's bad, 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 right? You don't want that to happen. And so color wheels like this really, really help you out. And if you don't know color theory, you're not a designer. I'm putting my hand up. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a designer, right? I'm a developer. But I know a little bit about design. I know that, you know what? If I don't know color theory well, I'm going to use a tool to help me out, right? So that's what this color wheel allows you to do. It helps you pick your colors and actually give you your hexadecimal values down here. And you can take these swatches and use them inside your style guide and say, you know what? I'm going to use my this color scheme for my navigation bar. My navigation bar is going to be this dark blue, and you know what? My text is going to be this lighter blue, right? My text color, and so on. And they match. They kind of go together, right? As an example. And there's other options you can do. So color, defining colors and everything else is really cool. And Adobe CC, which used to be Adobe Cooler, that's what it used to be called, can do that nicely for you. Sometimes we want to use some of our custom fonts. And of course, Google Fonts is a way to do that, where you want to use a web font as opposed to a font that exists on your machine. And there's some really cool web fonts that people have contributed to over the years. Some nicer fonts, because you know what? Nowadays, text is a really important piece of our content, right? So we have our content, looks nice, but big, bold text is something that's become more and more popular over the last couple of years anyway. And so in order for the text to look nice, you got to pick some good font. And it's not going to be something like Consolus, all right? Please don't pick one of those, right? Or, you know, Times New Roman is less and less being used as a font that's on websites, right? Like you want to pick a nice font, nice type. And we can do that by using things like fonts that exist online, some really nice fonts, especially if you want to make a stylized site. You can look for different kinds of categories of font, whether it's serif or sans serif. Who knows what's a serif or what's a sans serif in type? Just curious, really quickly. It's that curl, right? That little curl that goes on the end of the font, that's a serif. And ones that are sans serif, or like Helvetica, don't have the curl. They're just straight letters, like this. This is more of a sans serif because there is no curly on the end of the font, right? So if I only want to look at serif fonts, right, then these would be the kind of, you know, these little things at the end, these little endings would be your serif. Some of them are curly and square, some of them are curly and round, but those are the serifs. So only a serif, no sans serif fonts. Sans means none or without, right? Okay, and if I don't want handwriting fonts and I don't want monospace fonts, and you know what, I want fonts that are going to work that are serif fonts, and these are the ones you can kind of you know, go down into this, and you can see examples of what it looks like to be in a paragraph before you put it on your website to test it out, right? And I think this is important to understand what the type is going to look like before you put it on your site. Okay? So some fonts. Google Fonts is great for that. Other sites, you want to convert a font. You want to convert a font into create a web font of your own. You have a really cool font. Maybe you made it. Maybe you have a designer who wants to make their own font, and you want to use this as a web font that's going to work, right? Well, Font Squirrel allows you to kind of create your own font, and it takes glyphs from a font that you can create and makes a font that's compatible and actually gives you all the code you need, right? Like, for example, the CSS and everything else to add the font into your code, right? An example of that is if I had a font that's on my system, really quickly, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I have a font that's on my system that I use for gaming. I'm just trying to think if I could find one. Just as an example. Maybe I'll use the one from my Starbase 12 game. So I made a game for last semester, and I have some fonts that I used, and one of them it's a Star Trek font, right? So I've got this TrueType font, which is Star Trek, and I wanted to make it so it's a web font. Now Star Trek is not shared by every computer, so I want my fonts to be able to be seen by all the different kinds of computer programs out there, or browsers that are out there. And your browser, your computer may not have a Star Trek font, but I still want you to be able to see it. So how do I do it? I create a web font, right? And in order for me to do that, it converts the font into something that has that's readable by the machine, the browser that's incoming, right? And in order for me to do that, I take my Star Trek font, which is this one, and I want to upload it here to Squirrel, Font Squirrel, right? So I'm going to go to my downloads, and I'm going to go to Starbase 12 because that's where I have my stuff, my fonts. Here's my assets for Starbase 12, and I'm going to load up my my Star Trek font. Here's my final. I'll just use this one. It doesn't matter. I have a bunch of different ones. So here's my font, right? It reads it, right? And it says there's 94 glyphs in this font, and so on, right? It's optimal. And then I agree that this is font that I own, or whatever, that I have a control over. I'm not using it to sell or anything like this, and I can download my kit. What it does is it generates the font package for me, right, with the CSS and a little kit that I can download. Here it is. Here it comes down, right? And if I look at this site itself, so here's my web kit, web font kit that I grabbed from it. And by the way, this is just on the Mac, but on the PC it's exactly the same when you get this stuff. If I want to look at what my demo would look like, I can double click on this and it shows me what my Star Trek font will look like in all of its glory. Different sizes in the body, right? And this is a font that obviously doesn't exist on everyone's system, right? Some sample layouts that it gives me, right, and so on. Glyphs, right, what the fonts look like, and the code for the glyph, right? And also, it tells me how to install it. It gives me directions on how to install my web font on my website. So kind of a really cool site that you should look at, Font Squirrel, if you want to have your own cool web fonts. There's other ones. Sometimes we also want to create things like glyphs, icons, and there's a couple of them that I've given you. One of them is Fontello, which what you can do is you can take common icons that you want to use along with your links, right, as an example, and you can use those things. You can add these icons along with the names or the text that you're going to put on your navigation bar, right? And Fontello allows you to do that. You actually can you can actually pick the ones you want. I'm just going to pick up kind of a bunch of weird ones. Here's I'll pick that one and this one. And if you notice, you can download only those three, and you create your own little web font, right? Then again, it does kind of very similar things. It generates the icon font that you want to put onto your site. It only includes the icons you use, right? So it's not images, it's an icon font that it creates for you. And it just collects the glyphs that you want to use, and it kind of puts them together in a little font. Very, very cool. Let's move away from fonts for a second and go into wireframing. I asked you to do some wireframing, and there's a couple of really cool programs that allow you to wireframe easily. One of them is called Mockups. I'm just going to say, okay, got it. And Mockups with a Q, right, allows you to do some wireframing, just like we saw with the Quirks wireframing tool, right? And what it allows you to do is kind of lay out your text and how you want your site to look like before you actually type anything in there. You can lay it out the way you like. So there's this one, and you can drag and drop things like buttons. I want to put a button in there, and you can define the shape of the button and so on. Maybe different types of controls for you to build your app, your web app. Sometimes if you want to build it on an iPad or iPhone, they give you that functionality as well. And it's all live right here online for free again, right? If you want to kind of create your own little mock-up, which is what I'm going to be asking you to do, right? what we're going to be working on this next week for your wireframing. I want you to think about your website. This is your website for your assignment number 1. Next week, part of our class is going to be dedicated to doing a wireframe. So let's do a wireframe together, kind of thing. Okay, here's my wireframe. What is yours going to look like? And then that part of your external documentation is done. And then from a planning perspective, hopefully you started already by then, right? But it's going to match up with what you've already done. And then you can hand it in. If you hand it in, you'll get marks. I'll give you like a mark for your wireframe. Okay. Same thing goes with if I was to go to one more site for wireframes. If you don't like that one, and I'm giving you different options because I want you to. Here's another site that's called Mockflow. And Mockflow, it does kind of the same thing. It allows you to create your wireframes and export them into a format that you can use and download for your documentation. So again, if I want to create a layout, right, here's my layout. And what the layout will do is this is kind of a standard sidebar layout with a navigation area here. And I can start putting my buttons or my navigation bar. And I can scroll down for different kinds of controls, a different layout than we saw before, right? And I can drag and drop my controls so they're on here, right? Title box, triangle, different things that you can download. Right, here's a panel. Right, here's my panel. And maybe my panel's going to be down here. And as I build my layout for my site, right? You can kind of see how this thing is going to look before you do any programming, right? Because you want this thing to look this way. You want to have a plan before you do. Well, any kind of application development, this is what we need to do, right? So a little bit of wireframing. I'm also going to offer you that there's some tools you can also download, and one of the ones I like to use is Balsamic Mockups. It's available on Mac and Windows. And again, it gives you the same kind of idea, but it's a kind of a native program as opposed to online. So if I want to drag and drop a web page, and it gives you a little bit more control, obviously. It's a paid-for product. You can also download a trial. And what you can do is you can create your web page right from scratch. And again, you have the same kind of controls in terms of buttons. Here's my button, as an example. Or, other kinds of common controls that I could kind of put in there, button icon, right? And maybe an image placeholder on the top left for my logo, and so on, right? Drag and drop, and you create your wireframe. And after your wireframe is created, you take an image of this thing and export it, put it into your Word document, and this is what you're doing when you start designing your plan, your concept for the website. And by the way, I would even accept from you guys if you did a hand drawing. Like if you're someone who goes to a client, if this is your style, because some people do this as well. You go to the client and you take a napkin or a piece of reusable paper and you start drawing it out. Right? People do that too. And they don't do this. Take a picture of it and that's your wireframe. Like with your phone. Click, wireframe, slap it into your Word, your document, and I'm good to go. Because I'll tell you right now, half the time that's the kind of wireframe I get. A hand drawing someone made, and this is what they want, right? And most often than not, you're meeting at a cafe and you don't have these tools with you, or maybe you have an iPad. Luckily, there's a lot of iPad apps too. I'm not going to go into them because I've gone through enough of them already. But wireframing is really important because once you create a wireframe, this is what you make your site look like. You have to kind of have a concept for your site, or else you're just developing blind. We don't know what our UI is going to look like at all. So UI development, is an emerging technology? No, but it's something we need to do in order for us to get to the next piece, right? So I'm kind of building on some of the other web stuff you've done before. Have you ever done any kind of wireframes or anything before for your websites, application development, anything? Yes? But do they ask you to do that in other classes, maybe?
Not exactly done wireframe, but created prototypes.
For prototypes. So this is kind of the same idea. We're making a prototype, wireframe, whatever you like.
So this is part of the design phase, right?
I would say yes. Yeah. So you do your design phase. Now we're not going to go through the whole development life cycle here. We don't have time. right? Because we have a lot of things to cover in this course for emergency technologies. But one of the phases that you should know about is this conceptualizing design phase. And what I'd like you to do is put your wireframes onto your external document. Now, a wireframe is different than a screen capture. I'm asked for both. Why would I ask for both? Screen capture can almost give me an example of what your site actually looks like, right? A wireframe is like a high-level concept, and sometimes they have a prototype, which is in between a screen capture and a wireframe. And a prototype is like, okay, I've got it working. I've got all the graphics that I made in Photoshop or Illustrator, right? And it's a click-through. It'll actually click through and some limited functionality, but it's not really a site. You can actually use a PDF document to click through. That's a prototype, right? I'm not asking for that. That's just way too much work for 15%, right? But you may be asked for that when you're working in the real world as well. Some kind of prototype, so they can look at it and approve it before you actually do any coding, right? Because the approval process is really important, because if you start coding in the wrong direction and you think you know what the client wants and you haven't done your requirements document, you haven't kind of scoped out all the requirements and done some approval with the client, you might be barking down a wrong tree, and you've done all this work and you have to do it again. And then the client's not happy because they were expecting their website to be done on time and now you're behind, right? So that's why I'm asking you to do these this external document with some of this stuff. So that's Balsamiq. That's a very, very popular wireframing tool. I'm going to try and use some of the online tools with you because you may not have access to Balsamiq. A couple of placeholder images. Sometimes we want to put placeholder images in our text. One of them is Lorem Pixel, where you can use a shorthand and you can kind of place placeholder images inside your design before you actually have real images. So you want to test out what these placeholder images will look like, and it's kind of one part of our design flow. So an example would be, I want a placeholder that includes animals, right? So I click on animals as an example, and I want it to be a color image. Well, here's a random color image of an animal that I want to put on my website. So it's not my image. There's not images that I'm going to have there, but it's a placeholder image that I'm going to use so I know what it's going to look like when it's physically on my website, right? Especially if you're making a gallery and you don't have the content yet, you can use Placeholder it for that. And the great thing is that with Zen coding, so I'm going to go back onto Zen let's do a little bit of coding right now. So join me back on our website here. Last day we kind of did this web application example. I'm going to do it again from scratch. So I'm going to go New Project, right? I'm going to go to Web. I'm going to choose ASP.NET Web Application. And instead of Web Application 1, I'm going to call this COMP308 Lesson 2, Part 2, right? And of course, I'm going to put it in the right folder. I'm going to put it in the COMP308 folder for my courses under my code archive, right? So here it is, and press OK. I'm also going to add it to my Git repository. We did Git all last day, so you guys should be experts at Git by now, right? I'm going to press OK, and then I'm going to press empty and press OK again. And when I do that, it'll open up my Solution Explorer, right? And here's my COMP308 Lesson 2 Part 2 project, right? As part of my solution. I'm going to go into GitHub, right? Here I am in GitHub. And I'm going to create a new repository for this thing. And it's going to be, of course, called COMP308-Lesson 2 Part 2, right? Just to make it different than the last thing we did. Okay, here it is. Here's my URI. I'm going to take it, copy it. I'm going to go into my Team Explorer. I'm going to go to Changes and put my first commit. So this is basic site structure for Lesson 2. Oops. And make a commit. Then go in here and I want to do a sync. And kind of put it in here. And press Publish. And now I've got my site published online. Here I am, right? with my empty site, is what it is, right? Now I want to add in some basic things, right? We're going to create like I said, a boilerplate for foundation today, if we can. But for now, I'm going to create this. I'm going to start off by going right-click and going Add. Let's do it together. New folder, CSS, because I want to have a CSS folder. And this is your flow. This is what your flow should look like when you create a brand new project, right? Add, and I'm going to go New folder, Assets, right? Kind of an assets folder. And then I'm also going to go Add, right? New folder, Scripts with a capital S, because Microsoft likes that kind of thing, right? Inside my Scripts folder, I'm going to say Add, New folder, Lib, library, and I'm also going to create my first index.html page, which is Add HTML page, and then I'm going to put in their index. Who's got this far so far with me? I know I'm fast, and I'm doing it and you're watching. But you know, again, try and catch up here. I'm just going to go put in some changes. Language is English, because I want to have that in there. I got to put a couple meta tags in there. One of them is going to be called meta character set is equal to UTF-8, and the other one, the other meta tag, like we did before, is name is equal to viewport, because viewport's important these days with us, right? And content is equal to width is equal to device width. If you notice, I'm doing it all automatically. Visual Studio is coming up with all those all that code hinting itself, right? So I don't have to do any of that myself. Make sense? So yeah, and I fixed the screen size so it's not like off and I'm moving things around. It bothered the crap out of me yesterday. It was driving me nuts, right? All right, and then of course here's I'm going to create I'm going to call it Foundation Boilerplate because I want to use this thing, right? But for now it's just lesson 2, right? Foundation Boilerplate, and I'm going to add in some CSS. So I'm going to make a note, a comment here that says CSS section, because this is where I'm going to put my CSS. And of course, I don't have CSS to put in there right now, but I'm going to put it in. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to add in a new style sheet that I'm going to call app.css, right? I'm not going to modify it for now, but I am going to drag and drop the style sheet underneath my comment, which is going to go right here. So it links into my index.html file. Yeah, I forgot the closing brackets of this thing. That's the good code hinting, right? And then, of course, all my scripts, my JavaScript section is going to be on the bottom of my file, not the top of my file in the head. So that's the new style, right? So I'm going to go, or the new best practices. So this is my JavaScript section, right? This is where it's going to go. And I'm going to put all the stuff in there that I need to make things go. Right now I don't have anything, but we're going to add things in there. And I'm going to create my first boilerplate document with you. Okay, so we're good to go here. But what I wanted to show you is remember that Visual Studio 2013 with Visual Studio Web Essentials, it has some shortcuts. So if I say place, right, as an example, and I say I want an image that's 50 by 50 as an example, and I press enter, it'll actually give me my placeholder image right away, right? That's what it does. 50 by 50 is a very small image, like a thumbnail, right? So if I press go on Google here, just to run this thing, right, and see what it looks like, then I should get this little placeholder image on my left, right? Because this is what it is. I've just created a placeholder image that goes to the left-hand side of my screen, right? If I was to try that again, and instead of 50 by 50, I said, well, you know what? I need a couple of images. I need one that's 200 by 50, right? And I need another image, and I can, by the way, I can put my alt text in there as well. Here's placeholder 1. And you know what, here's another one, my other placeholder, I want to put in there place, you know, maybe it's going to be 200 by 30, right?
So
Here's 200 by
that's
30.
After you type that in,
Tab.
tab.
I'm tabbing over. Tab allows you to use your Zen coding or Emmet.
Oh, is that part of Web Essentials?
Yep. If you can't do it, that's the reason why you can't do it is because that shortcut exists with Web Essentials. Thank you for that. So when I run it now, or if I update it, what it does is it adds these two placeholder images, one next to the other, right? Because I want to be able to test these images out, and it actually gives you these placeholders, right? Well, remember, they also allow you to put in things like animals, right? Because this is Lorem Pixel with animals, and I'm going to placehold it, which is another one. I'll go to Lorem Pixel in a second. Placeholder is what I'm doing. I'm doing this. These placeholder images, right? 350 by 150. Here's 350 by what it looks like, 350 by 150. So you have images, placeholder images, with all my text and everything that I need, but there's no real image because I'm doing prototyping, right? I'm showing a client where his images are going to be placed. And in your case, you're trying to figure out where your stuff is going to go, and that's why we're doing this. We're trying to figure out where your images are going to look like, right? So Zen coding supports this, placehold it, but it also supports Lorem Pixel, right? And again, to know what Zen coding does and how it supports and what it supports, you can always go to the Visual Studio Web Essentials website, and if you go down to HTML5, this part here, and if you go into the Zen coding site, which is right here, it actually tells you right here next to it, the Lorem Pixel generator is right here, and if you see the syntax is pix-200 by 200 -animals as an example, or pix-200 by 200 -business, and you can try different ones out, right? So let's try this out. So if we go back here, and I go, instead of these placeholder images, I will pix dash, I don't know, a big image, 300 by 300, and I want to make it business, right? So it picks a random business picture, right? And if I update my screen now, it's going to have a couple of placeholder images and then a random picture of some business, right? 2 seconds, like one line, done, right? So again, from a placeholder perspective, you want to build your content, your prototyping for your content really, really quickly, and Zen coding or Emmet for people who don't like to use Visual Studio, because by the way, I'm not going to test you on your Visual Studio skills on how you build sites with your Visual Studio here in this course. I'm going to say you need, like I said in the assignment, you need to use some kind of source control. I didn't tell you have to use GitHub, right? It could be SVN, it could be something else, right? You need to do some kind of wireframing. Your site needs to be live. These are the things that you need to do for your assignment number 1. That means it needs to be hosted somewhere. Hopefully, to save money, you're going to host it at school. But if you're really a hotshot and you want to have your own domain and domain hosting, you can pay for that. And it's like $10 for the year for your domain name, and like maybe $9 a month or less, right? With some really cheap hosting out there, and you can create your own little site. And I recommend that if you're going to try and sell yourself when if you're going to work for somebody else, right? So again, some really cool little tools and built into Visual Studio 2013 with Web Essentials. So this kind of stuff here, right? We're not going to do this though. This is just examples of what Lorem Pixel and Placehold It allows you to do when you combine them with Zen coding or Emmet. Okay, so we've kind of covered, in this first part, we've kind of covered some of the more common tool sets that I've kind of shared with you on eCentennial. And I wanted you to know about these things because I'm going to be referring to them and you're going to go, hey, where'd you get that? Well, you already have the links that I'm going to be using, right? If you go to eCentennial, they're all there for you, so you don't have to try and search for them or try and figure out what I'm using or watch the videos to get the link. You don't have to do that. They're there for you. Any questions on this one? Again, just some setup and also we just kind of set up our first project.